Hey, what's up, guys? Richard here, back with another episode of Cosmic I Ching Hexagrams. Here we are in Hexagram 40, freeing. It's also sometimes known as deliverance, stuff like that. Freeing is the cosmic meaning. Here we have Chin over Kan, thunder over water. The judgment. The southwest furthers. When there's no longer anywhere to go, return brings success. If there's still unfinished business, it furthers to bring it swiftly to an end. The theme freeing refers to the interaction necessary to free the very helpers a person needs to completely free his true self. The southwest refers to the sunlit side of the mountain and is a metaphor for seeing things with clarity. Seeing things with clarity always brings inner freedom. A person can receive this hexagram when he has demonized all the helpers he needs to free his true self from the prison created by self-doubt, fears, and guilt. In this case, the changing lines show him how to free them, and in the process, free himself from the obstructions he has created. In Wilhelm's German translation of the classic Chinese text, the name of this hexagram is Befreiung, befreeing, meaning either freeing oneself, freeing another, or being freed. The English word deliverance, used by Carrie F. Baines, although not an incorrect translation of befreeing, potentially contains a religious connotation, as in being delivered from evil and deliverance from original sin. In this sense, the word deliverance obscures the cosmic meaning of the hexagram, which refers to being freed from the deepest fears and feelings of guilt that prevent a person from being his true self and thus in harmony with the cosmos. Deliverance, in the sense of freeing, can refer to becoming free of the ego. This is possible if he persists in the awareness that the ego is always ready on the side to re-enter through the use of words and ideas that have no cosmic basis. It may re-enter, for example, through a self-confidence that says, finally, I have freed myself from the ego. That thought is often a signal that the ego has re-entered. The ego may also re-enter by seizing any natural emotions, such as anger or remorse, and turning them into ego anger or self-blame. It also reinserts itself when a person listens to any flattery, self-pity, pride, or vindictiveness, all of which come from the ego. In some, a person can indeed be free of the ego, but he also can allow it to re-enter. The more he recognizes and resists any ego temptation at the outset, the more he retains and values his harmony with the cosmos. Freeing refers to a person's activity of freeing himself from the various self-flattering beliefs that create and support the ego. Self-flattery circles around the thought that humans occupy a special place in the order of things. The ego is active in every way that he thinks of himself as special. Each of the lines of the hexagram mentions one or more of these ideas and the spells they have created. Among these are ideas that human intervention and use of power are necessary to create order, justice, right, etc. in life, that humans need to do it all, such as taking upon themselves the repair of nature without understanding how nature operates through helpers. That is necessary to evangelize and defend cosmic truth. Humans see themselves as being given the task to spread and defend it. That people are divided into good and evil. The southwest furthers is also a metaphor for the need to ask the helpers of freeing to free him from the ego. The southwest, in this case, is a metaphor indicating the direction in which a person is to make the necessary inner effort. When there's no longer anywhere to go, describes a person who has reached a dead end through having defined every aspect of his life in categories of opposites, of good, evil, and right or wrong. Freeing in the cosmic sense refers to getting beyond the dualities of good and evil. Through his rigid dualism, he has demonized all the helpers in the invisible world by omitting them from his thinking. In doing so, he has separated himself from all help to understand the inner truth of situations. Return brings success counsels him to reopen his mind once he has recognized that he cannot go any further by following this path, and to ask the sage to help him return to his true nature. If there is still unfinished business, it furthers to bring it swiftly to an end, refers to people or things the person still views as culprits, including himself. It is not enough to free himself of the beliefs that have led to his dead-ended path. He also needs to free himself from those he has been regarding as culprits from the guilt spells he has put on them. So long as he continues to see a person or thing as a culprit, he will continue to be energized by aggressive feelings against that person or thing. No person, thing, or institution is a culprit. All evil is caused by the false use of language that has led to the beliefs that comprise the individual and collective egos. In this sense, all fixed beliefs are suspect, inasmuch as they contribute to evil by keeping a person in a fixed and preconceived frame of reference that prevents him from perceiving the unique inner truth of each situation. Line 1, without regret. This line addresses the confusion between the meanings of guilt and blame. A person feels blame, regret, in the cosmic sense when he has betrayed his inner truth and thereby separated from the cosmic unity. He can free himself from these feelings by recognizing his mistake and ridding himself of the mistaken idea or belief that has caused it. Because of the shame connected with blame, the ego seizes the feeling, reinterprets it as guilt, and thereafter uses it to keep the individual under its control. Because guilt is imagined to be a permanent stain placed upon the person's nature, which he carries with him to the grave, the fear of becoming guilty is as potent as feeling guilty. The presence of guilt or the threat of becoming guilty creates all sorts of mischief in the psyche and can lead to serious illness. This line can also describe a person who is now free of blame in the cosmic sense because he has rid himself of mistaken ideas by saying the inner no to them. But now he feels guilty for supposedly having betrayed the values he once believed in. This indicates that guilt, the reinstalling feature of the conditioning program of the collective ego, has been activated. He needs to recognize this feature of the program and say the inner no to it. Doing so will engage the helper of transformation to extinguish his blame and the fate he is experiencing, bringing him back into unity with the cosmos. This reunification experience has increased furtherance and progress because everything in the cosmos is directed towards furthering and increasing all of its parts. His inner effort also frees the helpers of fate from their task. It makes so much sense, right? This line can also be informing a person that the fate he is experiencing has been created by his false sense of guilt. The purpose of his fate is to make him aware of guilt so that he may rid himself of it. Line 2, one kills 3 foxes in the field and receives a yellow arrow. Being firm and correct brings success. Killing 3 foxes in the field is a metaphor for killing ideas, spells that have tricked a person into behaving in rigid patterns that are self-destructive. The rigid pattern in question is his seeing things in terms of good and evil. He identifies himself with the good, taking pride in being on the side against the evil, and sees others with the wrong viewpoint as creating problems. He fails to see the self-flattery in this process and the ego behind it. The 3 foxes refer to spells formed by 3 or more related flattering rationales, such as occur in the following phrases. To know good and evil is to be like God, or to become the superior man. You can avoid evil by being good. To be good, you must kill evil in yourself, as by fighting your animal nature. Each of these phrases locks a person into a particular behavior. Obsessive effort to be like God or to become the superior man. Obsessive effort to avoid what he has defined as evil. An obsessive effort to fight his animal nature, the body. These phrases create a Sisyphean effort towards a false goal of self-development, which only diverts the person from uncovering and freeing his true self, because it's a false goal of self-development, developing an ego. When these rationales become a campaign against the body, ill health is the consequence. Based on such beliefs, a person focuses on external rules of behavior, such as ascetic practices, rituals of all kinds, and inner pacts and promises to behave only in certain ways. The person believes that if he follows these practices and fulfills these pacts, he will be delivered from evil or attain eternal enlightenment or a similar state of being liberated from the ego once and for all. Not only do such beliefs leave the ego intact and unnoticed, they flatter him to think of himself as spiritual and therefore capable of judging and accusing others and seeing them as evil. The yellow arrow is a metaphor for the inner truth that kills phrases that slander a person's true nature. The person who rids himself of these phrases arouses the helper of insight that shows him the true ways of the cosmos. A person may receive this line when he is feeling guilty or is putting guilt upon another. Guilt is connected with the idea of indebtedness, but the debt by definition is not payable. It is either owed to a person, such as a parent, a higher authority, or a higher power. As this hexagram makes clear, a person can free himself from guilt only by ridding himself once and for all of the whole idea of guilt. Guilty feelings make a person feel weak, inviting the egos and others to prey upon him. He thus finds himself continually taken advantage of. This can lead to a victimization complex in which dread and expectation perpetuate vulnerability and attract emotional predators. Such a person needs to seek out those mistaken ideas and expectations he has internalized that make him feel guilty for not having lived up to them. Among these are guilt for having been born with abilities that others have been denied, guilt for being better off than others, guilt at having helped one person but not another, the idea that he owes his parents for what they have done for him, and guilt for not having lived up to the expectations of his social group. The image of the fox hunt calls to mind what happens when we hunt down anything we see as evil, be it a person, animal, a part of nature, or an institution, as a result of its evil effect on us. Even regarding the collective ego as evil or as a culprit is incorrect from the cosmic view, since this only energizes and substantiates it as an entity, and misses the point that its existence is the consequence of each individual's acceptance of its ideas and values within himself. A further effect created by seeing something or someone as a culprit is to draw its attention and attack, whereas getting rid of the image of it as a culprit has the effect of taking away its weapons. Interesting. Even evil ideas are not culprits. They are the mistaken conclusions drawn from using words that have no cosmic basis. Because of their destructive effects, we need to rid ourselves of them. Deprogramming them in meditation is often experienced as killing the demonic forms, imps, demons, and dragons they have taken on the psyche. When the evil ideas behind these figures are seen to be words or phrases that can be wiped out, as if on a blackboard, doing so initiates transformation. In regard to seeing nature, the earth, or other life forms as culprits, such an attitude comes from a human-centered view of the universe. This arrogant view not only pits a person against nature and the earth, it creates the projections on nature that cause it to respond with fate. An example is the way people create adverse weather events by projecting them to be typical of a given area or season. Ridding oneself of these projections frees the weather to fulfill its natural patterns. Line 5, if a man carries a burden on his back and nonetheless rides in a carriage, he thereby encourages robbers to draw near. Continuing leads to humiliation. This line refers to a person who is laboring under wrong ideas that have made life into a burden, such as guilt, a belief that life is a vale of tears, the belief that he is insufficient to cope with life, etc. These views create one fate after another. They blind him from seeing the gifts he has and those he has been given all along, such as his body, his food, and the sunshine, which have been carrying him through life as if in a carriage. If he continues harboring these views, he will lose even what he has, the humiliation mentioned. The carriage can also be a metaphor for a helpful intervention from the cosmos, meant to awaken such a person to seeing life as it is meant to be. The intervention can come as a love relationship, help with his job or living situation, etc., to give him an opportunity of delivering himself from a fate, the burden he has created by holding to those ideas. The carriage is the gift intervention that comes to help him make progress in his life. If, however, he misses this opportunity by continuing to carry his burden, seeing his life as hopeless, or else jumping to the arrogant conclusion that he has a right to the help he received, or if he credits his progress to his cleverness or to another mistaken source, then he finds the gifts taken away. The robber in this case is the ego, which he is allowed to set a new fate in motion. This line can also point to a codependency and the ultimate humiliation that it leads to, if not halted. An example is a child who takes on the burden of being the peacemaker in the family. He also adopts the idea that the family, as a group we, that gives him his identity, defines his purpose in life. The group we in this case is the carriage. Because his ideas exclude the helpers of the invisible world, in time the role he has taken on creates the fate of his being overburdened, both in that family and in his adult life. Similar roles are the caretaker. The sunny child who cheers everyone up, and the one who fixes everything, etc. Such people attract others to them who believe they need to be taken care of, to be cheered up, to have things fixed, to be saved, etc. To free himself, the person must dispose of his particular self-image and any guilt for leaving that role behind. He also needs to say the inner no to any worry the ego may put forward that the others will now come to harm. This line can also point to a person who has unnecessarily burdened himself by accepting the belief that he has come into this life carrying burdens from a past life, a belief that is projecting itself into reality. The cosmos has come to his help by bringing the carriage, but he has attributed the help to the wrong reason, by thinking it was given in return for his having made reparations. Since the cosmos only responds to humility, but does not make deals, the person's mistaken belief has only invited more misfortune. The I Ching makes it clear that each person enters life innocent and free of anything carried forward. While it is true that a person may return to another life in a body because he has not fulfilled his destiny, he enters it without baggage of any kind. So this reincarnation, at least in some form, appears to be cosmically supported. This line can refer to the belief a person is carrying that it is too late in life for me to correct my mistakes. The carriage refers to the fact that it is never too late for a person to correct himself. Line 4, deliver yourself from your great toe, then the companion comes whom you can trust. The great toe is a metaphor for being moved by ego impulses rather than by one's complete senses, the influence of which is felt in the back of the neck, where one's will is located. All impulses are based on mistaken ideas and beliefs. Receiving this line is to make a person aware that he is leaning on an idea that is insufficient. He is walking on his toe rather than his foot. In the context of this hexagram, the mistaken ideas have to do with thinking that people can free themselves without engaging the helpers in the invisible world, or that freeing oneself requires the aid of people. A number of related mistaken beliefs specify how freeing is to be achieved and what it entails. Among them are that freeing consists of cleansing oneself of primal faults or becoming free of one's animal nature through ascetic practices. Such ideas sacrifice one part of a person's wholeness to exalt the other, creating only an exalted self-image. This self-image debases whatever in his nature is perceived as incompatible with that image. The sage teaches that freeing refers to a person's freeing his true self, through ridding himself of the mistaken ideas, beliefs, and spells that have imprisoned it. Then the companion, the helper of transformation, comes to break the spell that has locked the personality up as defective and insufficient. This line can also refer to a person's fear of guilt, what makes him tolerate the ego in another. It prevents him from saying the inner no, for fear it will provoke the others, accusing him of being disloyal to him. See line 3 for a similar codependency situation, how to cope with it. On freeing himself from the fear of guilt, the helper that defends him from the ego and others is free. Line 5, if only the superior man can deliver himself, it brings success. Thus, he proves to inferior men that he is in earnest. Here, the superior man refers to the ego and its claim that by following prescribed rules and practices, a person can develop into a good person or superior man and thus overcome the natural inferiority of his nature. It proposes that his earnestness will prove his goodness to others. Through keeping the person focused on prescribed rules and practices, the ego controls the freeing process. One of the most dangerous of these practices is the practice of confessing mistakes and to indulge in self-blame, as by thinking, I have sinned or I never do things right. The sage makes us aware that both the self-blame spell and the guilt spell are so strong that the presence of either will block the helper of transformation from removing spells. This line counsels, therefore, to firmly reject the ego's ambition to become the good person or superior man, which have the purpose of overcoming guilt and self-blame through self-flattery. The person may further need to rid himself of the phrase that accompanies his desire for superiority. To know good and evil is to be like God. Only then can the helpers come to free his true self of the ego's dominance. This line can also refer to the need to deprogram a spell, the self-image of one who saves, delivers others through evangelizing the truth. Perhaps the person sees himself as the faithful servant of the sage who brings others to the I Ching. By concentrating on others, he ignores what he needs to resolve in himself. By evangelizing the I Ching, he turns it into a religion, which it is not. Sharing the I Ching with others who are open to it is one thing, but evangelizing is to throw it away on the ego in others. Line 6, the prince shoots at a hawk on a high wall. He kills it. Everything serves the further. The prince in this line can refer to the helper of transformation that a person engages through saying the inner no to beliefs and attitudes that are not in harmony with the cosmos. This determination enables the helper to kill the hawk, the control of the collective ego over the person that watches with its sharp eyes, like the all-seeing eye, the eye of Horus. That's collective ego. For every thought that might displace its rule, this hawk has been installed through conditioning in a person's thinking mind. Without the helper of transformation, the person would be unable to displace it, for its main means of control is guilt. This guilt is initiated each time a person even thinks of deviating from or rejecting the beliefs of the collective ego. It would claim that this rejection is betrayal, hence implying guilt. As a predatory bird, the hawk uses fear as another of its means to control, as through fears of punishment, exclusion, abandonment, and deprivation of one's primary needs. Receiving this line can inform a person that due to his courageous determination, the hawk mentioned has already been killed, freeing him from his deepest fear to go ahead on the path of his inner truth. This final freeing has taken place without his being aware of it, because a sufficient number of the rationales that has supported the collective ego's control over him have been whittled away. The hawk can also refer to a person who has branded another as an evildoer or culprit. Like a hawk, he has been on the lookout for evil in the other, suspecting him of having bad intentions. He has thus allowed his attitude to harden, forgetting that evil does not lie in the intrinsic nature of a person or thing. Taking the position of a hawk, the person has slipped into the demonic sphere of consciousness, in which everything is seen in terms of opposites. He needs to free himself of the self-image of being on the side of the good, which is behind his being on the lookout for evil. In another meaning, the hawk mentioned in this line is the dragon of guilt, which had been created through demonizing the person's natural integrity. Killing the hawk restores the helper of integrity to its natural function, to coordinate a person's psyche and body in accord with the cosmic principles of harmony. All right, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe right there, and I'll see you again in the next one.